Well, let's just say that sex is really not done well in the Judeo-Christian tradition to start out with. It's had a tough rap. The body and its desires, they haven't done all that well in the Christian tradition. In fact, getting closer to God usually means denying your bodily desires, right? How many of you grew up, only eating fish on Fridays during Lent, or fasting, denying hunger? Or you were told, to abstain from strong drink because you might look foolish. I was told, what if Jesus came back when you had one or two glasses of wine too many? How would you feel then? I said, I don't know, I'd offer him one. I wouldn't want to be selfish. And then, of course, in some traditions, you're the holiest when you're celibate, when you don't participate in bodily desires of a sexual nature. So we have turned this thing around, and it's not entirely the Christian tradition's fault. The kind of governing of the body. When you read Genesis 3, you also come up with this idea, at least in part. Adam and Eve disobey God by eating of the fruit of the tree of knowledge. And when they come to eat it, it says that it is a delight to their eyes, and it is desired to be wise, to become wise. And so you've got this desire which grows out of the body, blamed for what goes on for the disobedience in the Garden of Eden. But it's just not that. There's this punishment that goes with it too. And we don't usually pay a whole lot of attention to it, but the woman is punished by having her desire be for her partner, but then her partner rules over her. So there's no statement of her partner desiring her. And then the man receives punishment because they had just been in this beautiful garden, where in order to eat, all you have to do is pluck something off a bush or a tree, except for the one in the middle of the garden. And now they are sent out of the garden, and the world becomes this dust bowl, this soil in which you will have to toil all of your years with aching back and sweating brow. And so there are these punishments blamed on the body, on the desire that grows out of the body. Actually, I neglected to say that in the punishment of the man, it says, you shall be punished, for you listen to the woman. Guess, do you think Genesis was written by a man or a woman? I'm guessing a man. That's what I'm guessing. Yeah. So, today we have this text read to us from the Song of Solomon. This is the only time in the 3-year pericope texts, we have 4 texts to read from every week. This is the only time in those 3 years that the Song of Solomon is ever used. It's a bit of an embarrassment, as it was to the ancient rabbis and as it is in some ways to some portions of the church. And it's an embarrassment because it focuses on the body, on desire. It almost didn't make it into the Hebrew Testament, so it wouldn't have been part of our canon. But somehow, because it was such great writing and it pointed to something that was central and essential, it got in. The word God isn't used in it once. There's no spiritual language in it once at all. And Lee, who did this wonderful, nice little thing about having us close our eyes and create an image, I'm glad she didn't read some of the other passages that are, because to close your eyes and create an image with them would go, I mean, when I was a teenager, this was my favorite book of the Bible. And you wonder, why is it included there? Well, there's a strand of scholarship that says that the Song of Solomon reverses the curses of Genesis. And that's why it's there, because it reverses the curses of Genesis. And when you look at it, you can see why this strand of scholarship thinks so. The word desire is only used 3 times in the Hebrew Testament. Twice in that 3rd chapter of Genesis that I quoted from, and the other time in the book, not in our text today, but in the book of Solomon. So one begins to think, as you read this beautiful collection of love poems about a relationship between this man and this woman, these 2 partners, that you begin to get this idea that maybe something is trying to be said as a conversation with Genesis. So here's the reversal of the curses. The reverse, they're not in a dust bowl. The whole book takes place in this beautiful garden. So there's reversal number 1. We live in a garden. Reversal number 2 is that the woman, while Genesis says that her desire is for the man, in the Song of Solomon, it says that the man's desire is for her, and she is his. In other words, there's a mutuality about this desire. And then there's a mutuality in the whole book. It's not hierarchical. He doesn't rule over her. As a matter of fact, it's just amazing. The book has more speech or poetry from the woman than it does the man. And they run in parallel. And actually, they are kind of mirror poems, one of another, so that you get this sense of mutuality in this relationship. So there's the reversal, and it works on the hub of this idea that the body is not to be ignored. The body is not to be shunned away. For all through the book, they listen to the body, and they are driven to one another through it. Now, I want you to be sure, I'm of the boomer generation, you know. If you can't be with the one you love, love the one you're with. Love the one you're with. Okay, that is not the Song of Solomon. Okay, the kind of free sex of my generation, this is not what the Song of Solomon is talking about. It's talking about the expression of the body in a committed relationship with a future. They're probably not married. They're probably betrothed to one another. They're probably not married because they are seeking each other throughout the whole book. And, you know, if you're married to somebody, they show up at 5 o'clock every day and you plop something on the table for them. So there's no reason to be seeking them. So that's the kind of hub around what it works with. It's not free sex. It's a full expression of bodily desire. And we have a tough time with that as well. Of course, we're in New England, you know. We're usually pretty prim and tightened up and all of that. We're not California, where you might expect the Song of Solomon to be preached on. But our sense of listening to our body is not well attuned. We don't spend a lot of time listening to our bodies. We're more involved with our heads, you know. We're moved toward intellect. But I'm here to tell you that there's a growing body of research that says that your gut, your feelings, your belly, your stomach, your body are also part of your brain. There are 100 million brain cells in your belly. That's as many brain cells that is in the head of a cat, which may explain why your belly does not obey anything you want. Now, there are 100 million brain cells there, but they don't make complicated decisions. They make decisions that have more to do with responding to your environment. Well, let me say it this way. I went to a training 3 weeks ago, and as part of that training, I was asked at one point, one of the leaders was working with me, and he asked me to close my eyes like I did to you and like Lee did to you at the beginning of the service, and asked me to scan my body to see if there was anything in it that felt amiss. Was there any tightness? You know, was there any muscles anywhere that were hurting? Did I have a sensation in my head or in my stomach? And, you know, I came up with, there was a little tension, and it was kind of right here, right at the top of my solar plexus. And he said to me, okay, so feel that tension? Yeah, your body's telling you something. It's got something to say. Can you find any words or maybe an image or a story that might go with this tension? If this tension were to speak, what it might say to you. And I thought for a moment, and the craziest thing happened. Kind of out of nowhere, this tension revealed a story to me about when I was growing up. And I was helping my dad fill oil trucks because he worked nights while he was in seminary. And he asked me to help. He turned one of the pipes on that emptied oil into a truck, and he showed me the different levers, and he said, you pull this lever, and that lever will shut it off. And then he got down off the oil truck to go do something else. And I looked down into that oil truck and watched as it rose, and I couldn't really tell where it was because it was all black, and then suddenly there it was right up at the top. It was over there, it was flowing over. What am I going to do? There it is flowing over, and I turned and I looked at these different levers, and I thought, which one was it? What lever did my dad say to push? And now it's flowing all over onto the floor, and it's going, I'm going, I don't know if is this the right one? Could I do that? It could be the wrong one. It could come out faster. I don't know what to do. And my dad, who was over there in the corner, and he was working on something, he turned up and he said, oh my goodness! And he runs over and he climbs up and turns the thing off. And he said to me, why don't you go sit in the office and I'll clean this up? And I felt horrible, about that big. And he never talked to me about it when I was a kid, later in life. And so I had this tension inside of me that I realize when I'm quiet and calm, it just kind of rises up right to there. And if I listen to my body, do you see the story that it has to tell? And so all of our bodies have this kind of information to give us. This is what I think the Song of Solomon is trying to say in the larger sense. It's like the quote today from Mary Oliver that's in your bulletin. You don't have to be good. What? What do you mean I don't have to be good? Isn't that the point of all this, being good? No, that's not the point. You don't have to be good. You don't have to walk on your knees for 100 miles in the desert repenting. Trying to fast from, fasting and celibacy and abstinence and all of that, That's not the point. You only have to let the soft animal of your body love what it loves. But in order to do that, you got to listen to the soft animal of your body. A few examples and then I'll shut up. One is ministers marry people. Sandra and I go through this process, and you just of couples coming in to see us, and in this day and age, there are a number of couples who they feel the pull of romantic love, toward another person. And what they want to do is just love them in the fullness of that, in every way they possibly can. But then their mind kicks into gear. They go, whoa, wait, hold on. I don't own a house yet. And I don't have a lot of money in the bank. And what if this person isn't actually the person that I want to be married to for the rest of my life? And so they step back. The Song of Solomon is saying, love, follow what your body is calling you to. Don't do it without consulting your brain, yes, but listen to your body first, and it will tell you what the thing is that you ought to do. Of course, you talk to young men and women too, I think, but I'm going to say mostly men, and there's that whole fear of commitment thing and blah, blah, blah. I get it. Commitments are scary. How do I know I'm going to be able to fulfill them? But anything that's worth anything is a risk. So listen to your body. The second way I want to illustrate this is to say, my brother-in-law, Bob, was driving in a car in Chicago. He pulled up to a stoplight, and in front of him was a man driving a car. He assumed it was a father, and there was somebody in the back seat, a little blonde head sticking up over the back seat, maybe 10 or 11 years old. He wasn't sure if it was a boy or a girl. But sitting there at that stoplight, he saw the man turn. He couldn't really hear him, but he saw him turn and shout at this child that was in the back seat. And then just a few moments later, he saw him turn and shout again. And then he saw the fellow twist himself so that he could insert himself between the two seats. And he started shouting at the kid and thrashing the kid. And my brother thought, oh, that's horrible. And his anger began to rise up. But he thought then his brain kicked in, right? And his brain said, well, this really isn't my problem. This is a personal problem. This is a family problem. I shouldn't get involved. It's theirs to handle. But as he saw the more powerful person take advantage of the powerlessness of the child in the back seat, this anger just raged up inside of him, and his head became hot, and he started honking his horn. Honk, 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 honk. And then he started yelling, stop it, stop it, stop it. People were stopping along the sidewalk and looking at him. Honk, 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 honk. And then for one moment, The man lifted his eyes, and his eyes met Bob's gaze, and they winced. And the light turned, and he got into the front seat, and he drove away. I don't know, was it the right or wrong thing to do? I mean, anger can be misused in many ways. And maybe that made it worse for the kid later, I don't know. But anger sends a message to you. Your body tells it to you. Listen to it. Try to understand what your anger is saying. One more. You all know I'm a sucker for tears. But I saw a thing on TV a couple years ago. It was an interview of a single woman in New York living in one of the ghettos in the Bronx. She had 2 kids. And the camera was placed on their ragtag couch in this living room that had almost nothing in it. And here's this little, 4-year-old girl, had a little ribbon in her hair. Her feet are just kind of dangling back and forth on the couch. But she has a smile on her face. And she has a smile on her face because next to her on the couch is sitting her brother, who's 6 years old. He's about to go into 1st grade. And he's singing to her, "Twinkle, twinkle, little star, how I wonder what you are." And this just delights her. And she is smiling and grinning. And then the mom's voice is overdubbed over this scene in this song. And the mom says, "I love my children. I love my children like anyone else. But truthfully, I'm working 2 part-time jobs, and I don't know how long I'm going to be able to keep this apartment. And I don't know every week if I'm going to have enough to put food on the table. But that's not my biggest worry. My biggest worry is my boy's going to go to 1st grade. He's going to have to walk 3 blocks to school. And kids get hurt in this neighborhood when they walk to school and they come home. And I'm sitting in front of the TV, and tears are starting to run down my face. You know I'm a sucker. And then my head kicks in. And I go, if she hadn't had these 2 kids in the first place, she doesn't have a father for them, she wouldn't be in this position. And that would be the way it should be. It's her fault. She shouldn't have done this. And then I look at this little boy singing this song. And I realize she just wants for her kids what I want for my kids, and what you want for your kids. Listen to your body, to the sadness when it rises up. It's telling you something. And so I discerned during that time that I wanted to try to understand this. How is it that people end up like this? Is it all their fault? Certainly not the kids' fault. Are other things going on? Well, I don't know if I'm right or not, but that's what I think the Song of Solomon is saying to us. Listen to your body in all of its messages to you. Be aware that it has a brain too. Don't ignore it. Put it in consultation with your other brain. When you love someone, you can say it, Arise, my love, my fair one, and come away, for lo, the winter is past. The time of flowers has come. And if you see a powerless person being abused, you can say the same thing. Arise, my love, my fair one, and come away, for winter is past, and the time of peace has come for you. And to those folks who live at the bottom of the ladder and who are just cranking it to get through to another day, you can say, arise, my love, my fair one, and come away. Winter is past, and the time of justice has come. Oh, the body reaches out to us and says, hear me, hear me.